Hi, everybody, and welcome to In Sarah's Tent. This is episode 16. My name is Nancy, and I have Sandy here with me.
Hi, Nancy. Hello, everyone.
We call our podcast In Sarah's Tent because Sarah was a righteous woman, and she and her husband, Abraham, had the trait of hospitality, and their tent flaps were open for visitors. So the logo of our podcast is a tent with the flaps open. We also have a candle in our tent because we read in commentary, that there was a candle burning in Sarah's tent all the time. So what we do is we are reading through the Torah and then talking about it. We are all the way up to the flood. And we're going to be reading a little bit more in the flood story. So, Sandy, you want to read for us?
Okay, Nancy, I'll be glad to. We'll be reading Genesis 8, beginning in verse 5. And previous verse, the ark had come to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Verse 5. The waters were continuously diminishing until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first of the month, visible were the tops of the mountain. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent out the raven, and it went going forth and returning until the drying of the waters from upon the earth. Then he sent out the dove from him to see whether the waters had subsided from upon the face of the ground. But the dove could not find a resting place for the sole of its foot, and it returned to him to the ark, for water was upon the surface of all the earth. So he put forth his hand, and he took it and brought it to him into the ark. He waited again for 7 days that were additional, and again sent out the dove from the ark. Back to him the dove came toward the time of the evening, and behold, a leaf from an olive tree plucked from an olive tree was in its bill. And Noah knew that the waters had subsided from upon the earth. Then he waited again for 7 days that were additional, and sent out the dove, and not again did it return to him any more. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, on the first of the month, the waters dried from upon the earth. Noah removed the covering of the ark, and he looked, and behold, dried had the surface of the ground. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, fully dried was the earth.
Thank you, Sandy, for reading that. So we have a story here about the sending out of the birds. But first, I want to talk about the first verse and the last verse. The first verse that you read, Sandy, and the last verse both give us specific dates.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this before where the Torah gives us very specific information about when these events happen. And here again, we have specific dates.
It's interesting. And it just, what do you think he is so precise in letting us know when all these events occurred?
Well, I think it helps us feel assured that they did occur. Some people would say that maybe these things didn't occur, but we have specific dates as to when they occurred. And
Right.
it's not just once upon a time, it was on this date.
It gives validity, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, when Noah went into the ark, he was 600 years old, and now he's 601. So it's basically a year in the ark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, a little bit over a year in the ark.
A little bit of
Can you
a year.
imagine that?
No. I cannot.
It's, a lot of times we talk about Noah and him building the ark and following Hashem's command to build the ark and dealing with the people around him, and probably they ridiculed him while he built the ark. We
Right.
hardly ever talk about that year that
Right.
everybody lived in the ark.
Yeah.
He was also working, him and his family were working all that year, feeding the animals, cleaning the stalls, managing everything. I mean, that was
Yeah.
that was probably maybe even harder than building the ark.
Oh, true. And not there was a lot of actual hard labor going on, but for me, I think it would be hard to spend that year not knowing what was going on the outside.
Right.
What
They
has
didn't have
happened? He did. We learned later, we read where he opened the window, but there's nothing indicating that throughout the year that he would open it and look out to see what was going on. So it'd have to be a little, I mean, we can't go 30 minutes without wanting to find out what's going on in the world and being on our phones and checking what's happening, to go a whole year and not even look out and see what is happening on the outside. That would be difficult for me.
Yeah, I think that's something that most people don't think about, what
No.
they were doing in that year.
And I wonder why the Torah is silent on that. Why we're not given any insights as to what was actually going on. What was a day like? What was a day in the life of Noah like in the ark? I think that would be so interesting.
Yes, and it doesn't say anything about that.
No, they go in the ark and they come out of the ark.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the waters settled and the ark settled on the mountaintop, and it sat there for 40 days before Noah opened the window,
Right.
which I think is odd as well. I would have thought that as soon as he felt that the ark had hit dry ground or hit solid ground, he would have looked out, but he waited a little bit over a month.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the 40 days, there's something special about 40 days. Why would he wait? I don't know. Have you read anything? And I'm just scanning our commentaries. If there's anything, why he would have waited that long. But right now, just scanning it, I don't see anything in this Chumash in the commentary.
I think you mentioned last week the relationship between the 40 days on top of this mountain and the 40 days that Moses was on top of the mountain.
Right. Yeah.
So there's maybe a connection there, the 40 days on top of the
Yes.
mountain.
It does seem like throughout the Torah, there are things just don't randomly happen. It's no coincidence that this was 40 days and that was 40 days. There's got to be some thread connecting all of those events.
And then he sends out a raven. Most of the time when we hear the story about him sending out a dove. But first he sends out a raven,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting that he would send out a raven first. I have read commentary that said because a raven is an omnivore and it eats carcass as well as plants, that he was sending out the raven to see if there were any dead animals
Right.
around.
Yes, they are scavengers. Yeah.
But it's also interesting that it doesn't say that the raven flew away. It just says it flew around.
Yes. I've read that it just circled the ark. It didn't come back in, it just kept circling the ark. And my question, and I asked Rabbi Wolbe this. Raven is an unclean bird, or I like the way we refer to it, not clean. It was a not clean bird, but then he sent the dove out, which is a clean bird. So why send a clean bird and a not clean bird out?
And what was the rabbi's response?
He said, it's certainly no coincidence. There has to be a connection. What do you think? And so I sent him what I thought, but I haven't gotten a reply back on whether, no, you've gone way off the rails or what. But yeah, there has to be something about, um, I, we won't spend a lot of time on this, but my initial thought was maybe the raven represents the Yetzer Hara, the dove, the Yetzer Tov. And just as when Adam left the garden, he took with him a Yetzer Hara and he took with him a Yetzer Tov. And if this is doing the creation story again, part 2.0, that they're taking the evil inclination and the good inclination out into the world. I don't know. And like I said, I haven't got a reply on that. If that's so, anybody listening to this, just fast forward through that.
Or send us your comments.
Yes. But I think there has to be some reason why he chose a not clean bird and a clean bird.
Yes. Why a raven and a dove?
Right.
So then he sends out a dove. And just a point of interest, the Hebrew word for dove is Yonah, which is
Yeah.
Jonah.
Yes.
So is there any connection between Jonah's story and this story? Well, there's water, there's water, there's a boat, there's a boat.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't thought it through yet, but I was just noticing that. And there's always connections. If you find
Yeah.
something in one part of the Torah and it comes up again in another part of the Torah, there's probably a connection.
Yeah. Well, I like where you're headed with that. So it'd be interesting to continue that and see what other connections or similarities there are in those two. Oh,
Interesting.
yeah. Well, the dove was sent on a mission. Jonah was sent on a mission. So anyway, maybe we need to do some more research on that and come back to that at a later point.
Yeah, there was a plant. Here we have an olive
Yeah.
branch, and in the story of Jonah, it was I
Yeah,
forgot the plant.
a vine, some kind of vine. I don't remember the name of it either, but yeah, a vine.
Yeah.
But my question, Nancy, is why send out the birds at all? Couldn't he have just looked out the window and see where the water was? Why did he need to send out these birds to begin with?
That's a good question. I don't know, maybe the window was not in a place where he could look out.
But he could open it and send the birds out. I guess
Yeah,
maybe he just picked them up and tossed them out rather than, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe it was above his eye level.
maybe.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know. I don't
Like
know.
maybe a hatch type thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But that's a good question. Why didn't he just look around?
Yeah. And how many times I can only speak for myself, how many times have I read this story and just thought, he sent a raven, he sent a dove, and never really stopped to think about what's behind all of that? why these things?
Yeah. So the first dove flies around and comes back, doesn't find any place to rest. And Noah, I almost said Jonah, Noah put out his hand and took it back into the ark with him. And then he waited another 7 days.
Do we see a
So
pattern here?
yeah,
Yeah.
we were just learning on Sunday about 7 days and waiting 7 days. And so,
Yes.
yeah, 7 days seems to be another pattern, the
Yeah.
waiting of 7 days.
Yeah. And what you're referring to is the person that has been diagnosed with Zerat, if I'm saying that correctly. 7 days, the priest looks at it again, waits another 7 days. He mikvahs, waits another 7 days. Yeah, it's again, there's got to be some connection there. Why he's waiting 7 days.
Yeah. So we had the 40 days and then the 7 days. So then he sends out the dove again. So this is the second time he sent out a dove, but the third time he sent out a bird. So raven, dove, dove.
Mm-hmm.
And this time it's in the evening and the dove brings back an olive leaf.
Yes.
So
Interesting,
what
an
does,
olive leaf.
yeah, what does that tell Jonah? Um, Noah. I'm going to get that really confused. I shouldn't have said it. Now it's
Now it's
stuck.
stuck. It's stuck there. It's okay. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What did he learn from that olive leaf?
Well, just on the surface, I think it's telling them that vegetation is growing again, that the waters have receded enough and some plant life has started coming back.
Yes, but not quite enough for the bird to stay out and build
Right,
a nest.
right.
And I did read some commentary, very interesting commentary, that I'd never heard this way of looking at it, but that the dove didn't come back just because it was tired and just because it wanted to come back to the nest. Let me see if I'm reading this right. Um, the lesson is that it was bringing back this olive leaf, which was not, it was bitter.
Right.
And the sages say that even the bitterest food eaten in freedom is better than the sweetest food given in servitude.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around that. So the bird would rather eat the bitter olive leaf in freedom,
Mm-hmm.
even though it appreciated Noah taking care of it all this year and feeding it and feeding it good food.
Mm-hmm.
It would rather eat bitter food in freedom.
Yes.
That's what the sages take from that.
That's interesting. Uh, Again, I have never looked beyond the surface other than it's just telling or giving Noah an indicator that the waters are receding. But yeah, there's again more to it than what we just read on the surface.
Yeah, that it was getting its food from HaShem, this
Yeah.
olive
Yes.
leaf was from HaShem, and that it would rather eat that than sweeter food
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
not. Okay.
And then it says, and then he sent it out again, and it didn't return.
Right. So the
So,
fourth time.
yeah, and that, I guess that's telling Noah it's waters have receded enough. It finds a place it can build a nest. It's got a place it can rest. Oh, yeah. So there must be some reason why he's not just looking out of the window. I think you're onto something there, that maybe it was not a window, maybe like I'm thinking a window that you look out.
Yeah, like we
Otherwise,
have
why
to
would
do in
he
our
be
house.
relying on these birds for the info? Okay.
So the earth's surface was dry, but maybe not dry enough to walk on.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't come out, because it says that the earth's surface was dry, right? Yeah, dried, had
Mhm.
the surface of the ground, but yet he doesn't come out.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess maybe just the surface of the soil had dried, but if you put weight on it, you might still sink down. Is that kind of what you're saying? It wasn't dried to any kind of depth that would be what we would think solid. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking that's what Noah was thinking,
Oh, okay. Okay.
because he didn't come out. He waits. We haven't read this part yet, but he waits until Hashem tells him to go out. It's interesting that he didn't get into the ark until Hashem told him to get into the ark.
Yeah.
And now he's not getting out of the ark until Hashem tells him to get out of the ark.
Okay. So maybe it has nothing to do with the dryness of the land. He's just waiting for the okay from Hashem.
Yeah. So if he's waiting for the okay, or waiting for Hashem to tell him to come out, then why did he send out the birds in the first place?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah.
He could have just sat there and waited
And
until Hashem
yeah.
says, okay, now get out.
Yeah. All clear. You can come out now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. Very good.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that until just now. That why did he do the whole thing about the birds anyway?
Yeah. I don't know. Another Rabbi Wolbe question. And again,
Well,
like you mentioned before, we've got the exact date. The second month, on the 27th day of the month, fully dried was the earth. It's interesting, it can be that specific, that the earth now is dried. Like the day before it wasn't dried, but now on this day it is dried. Oh, interesting. Did we
but I
want,
think
go ahead, I'm
I
sorry.
I think it's also interesting, like you said, that it's been a year,
Yes,
because it's 101st year. It doesn't say of Noah's life, but I'm guessing that's what it is, because it was 600. He was 600 years old when he went in, and it says now 601st year.
right. Yeah. I think it's talking about Noah's. He's now 601.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to go on and maybe finish the chapter, or is this a good stopping point?
I think this is a good stopping point. Let's
Okay.
do our takeaways, and we can start next time on verse 15, where God tells Noah to come out of the ark.
Out of the ark. Okay. Yeah, I think this is a
So,
good.
Sandy,
Yes,
what's your
ma'am.
takeaway on this?
Well, my takeaway is just the faithfulness of God to keep his promises, to do what he said he was going to do. We talked a little bit about it last week. He remembered Noah. He didn't just forget that all of this had happened, but he took care of them. He provided. And even though we don't understand the reasoning behind sending the dove and the raven out, there was a purpose for it. And even though maybe we don't understand why the 7 days intervals, it all is serving some purpose, which makes me feel like there's a purpose to things that happen today also. I don't think once the Torah was finished being written that God's plan stopped. I think it's still going today. And we just need to make his plan our plan. So what's your takeaway, Nancy?
I'm going to piggyback on yours. You were talking
Okay.
about how faithful God was. I'm going to flip it and talk about how faithful Noah was.
Oh, okay.
That as God is faithful, so we must also be faithful to him.
Mm-hmm.
That we must do what he wants us to do totally all the way, 100%, even when it's a very difficult thing to do, even if it lasts a long time. As he is faithful, we should be faithful too.
And just thought occurred to me. I think God told him it would rain for 40, or did he tell him it would rain for 40 days and 40 nights? I'd have to go look back and see for sure. Did he tell him that, or is it telling us after the fact? But did Noah know how long he was going to be in the ark when he went into it? Did he know it was going to be a year? Was it going to be 2 years? Would it be 6 months? Did he go into it without knowing when the end was, when will we come out of this again? So maybe there's a lesson for us there. Trust
Yes.
God that even though I don't know the end of this, he does. He knows what the end. And when I'm going through a struggle that to me, it looks like there's no end to it. He knows there is an end to it. That
Right.
I will come out of that. I will come out of that ark at some point.
Yes. We
I
will
don't know.
come
We'd have
out
to
the
go
ark.
back and look. Did he tell Noah it was going to rain for 40 days? Seemed like that's something that I should know. Don't know if
I don't think so. I don't think it says that he told him how long this thing was going to be, but he had to pack food.
True.
He had
Okay.
to know how much food
Oh,
to
okay.
pack.
I think I just found it. Okay. He's telling him to take the animals 2 by 2, the birds, the creeping things. For in 7 more days will I send rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So he did know it was going to rain 40 days and 40 nights. But after that, did he think, oh, well, then it'll be over? Or did he know going into it, it was going to be a year before he would come out of it again? So maybe he didn't know that part of it, but yet he did it anyway.
Right.
So, wow. Okay.
Well, this was a nice discussion.
Yes.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will come back and continue this story next week. So join us next week in Sarah's tent. Bye.
Bye.